Hey everybody, we are diving into CorelDRAW 5 or higher. I personally am using CorelDRAW 5. If you have a more recent version, things may look a little different, but usually Corel stays pretty true to the original program and how it works and function. Okay, so to start, we're going to be clicking New Blank Document. And for the settings, I usually always go with 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels, and it was RGB color. I kind of clicked out of that real fast, so let's do one more of those so you can see. 2000 pixels, and the color mode is RGB, and the rendering resolution is 300 dpi. I keep it at 300 whether I'm doing print design or web design, so it's always at the highest quality, and there's no room for error if a client decides that they ordered something originally for the web but that they wanted to convert it to print. So I always just cover all my bases, keeping that at 300 dpi. Click OK. Going into this, I'm just going to import one of my graphics, so as I go through the tools I'll be able to give you a visual. Let's see. I'll bring Anne in here. All right. Okay, so this is the reason why you're taking this class. I am a character designer, but after you've gone through all of your tools, there are many things that you can do with this program. I'm just going to be demonstrating my personal style and what I do on a daily basis. So to start, the first thing to point out are these toolbars. You have the top toolbar, the side toolbar, which you'll see always work together. As you click different tools on the sidebar to the left, the options often in the top bar will change. As you can see, I'm clicking just a couple, so you can see this changing based on the options for the different tools. Okay, so that is normal. Also over here, you will have your object manager. As you create new layers, which is a shape, that is called a layer, it will show up in this section over here. Down here you have your color and your outline. So to begin a picture, the first tool that you're going to be really getting comfortable with is the Freehand tool. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down in my version of Corel, and it looks like a little squiggly line. This is like your pencil tool. And what we do to make pictures is to draw shapes. We're not going in here and using this like a pencil. You're not going to be drawing and then just letting it go unless you just want a solid line. If you want a shape that you can color in, like Anne's shirt over here, you're going to be drawing that shirt as a shape. The analogy that I often use is that in order to create this kind of artwork, it's like when you're back in 3rd grade and you cut out the pieces of paper and you would make a collage. You'd use shapes and you'd put them on top of each other to make snowmen or to make whatever else. That is what we're doing here. We're making multiple shapes and layering those shapes on top of each other to make a finished picture. So it's a little different than what some people would expect as far as how to create something like this, but it is fun and it is easy once you get the hang of it. So your freehand tool is what you'll be doing, what you'll be using to make every shape that you see in any design that you create. The line that comes as the default is up here as a 2 pixel wide black line. If you want to have a different default, you can come in before you have the freehand tool selected, come over here, double click it, and change your settings over here. 10 pixels, different colors, different types of line, all of that is right here. So if you're looking to change the line, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on each one of these options, but this is where you do that. And I always click behind fill and scale with image. That's just what I have. I run into problems as far as lines taking on different widths when I don't want them to, if I'm enlarging or making an image smaller once it's complete. That's just one of the things that will show up later, but just right from the very get-go, get used to clicking off those boxes so you won't run into any of those problems. Click OK. For the shape, the line default is still the 2. If I want to draw out my whole image and then come back and fill it in, I can, but usually my go-to thing is to create the shape, and then automatically I'll go right over here and edit to exactly how I want it to be. No outline, and I'll choose a color. I can choose a color by clicking anywhere on this slider. In the models, there are color palettes over here, which you're welcome to come over here and explore, but I find that in order to get colors that I'm really trying to get that are right on, I have to find the exact hue and saturation over here myself. If you're just starting out, the palettes is a good place to start, and then you can kind of come over here and figure out what colors you need that you're not finding in the palettes. So play around with those. I never use the mixers, so you can just not even bother with that one. Okay, so I'm going to choose, we'll just say a pretty aqua teal color. Okay, and then I have my shape. I'm going to use the freehand tool again. We'll say I'm going to make another shape on top of this shape. Okay. Changing the settings for it. I rarely use outlines unless it's something that I really need to have it pop or stick out a little bit. You'll see that there's a small outline on Anne's jawline and on the collar of the shirt and around the earrings, but not everything. Now, right now, you can see that this is looking a little fuzzy. It's a little pixelated. If you come up to View, it's on Pixels. You want to click that to Enhanced. And then no matter how far you zoom in, it's crystal clear and you can see all of your little pixels and where everything lines up perfectly. Alright, to zoom back out, I'm going to click to Page. All of this zoom command up here, there are multiple commands that you can use. 100% will bring you right to in line with the page canvas. Obviously 10%, all these will zoom you in closer. Anything below 100% will make it smaller. If you have one image selected and you want to zoom in to just that one little selected image, you could do to selected. To fit would be just all of your shapes. fitting into your screen. So play around with that. But going back to this layer, all right, if you are wanting to move layers around, you can drag and drop, but the more precise way to do it would be to come up here, get your pick tool selected, and you're going to go to the top toolbar. You'll notice that you have the size of your canvas showing up here. Your units is always pixels, and you'll see a nudge distance. The nudge is a more precise movement than the click, drag, and drop. Select your shape by clicking it and nudge it with your arrows on your keyboard. Okay, you'll see it's moving quite a bit. For my nudge distance, I always have it set to 1 pixel, the smallest distance that I can. That gives me the most control over where my shapes are landing when I'm using the nudge. And also over here, there's the duplicate option. A lot of times, you're going to want to duplicate parts of your image. If you have a perfect hand or an eye, you may want to just select the eye and duplicate it, flip it over to the other side, and so that way you don't have to draw 2 eyes. You can just draw 1 and then edit the second slightly to make it fit appropriately within, whatever you're doing. So duplicate. This is a good thing for the earring too. I would just draw 1 earring and duplicate it and bring it over here. But you'll figure all that out with practice. But we'll just stick over here with the simpler images. And to duplicate, you would click it, hold down Control and D. You'll see over here in your Objects Manager that now you have 2 of these shapes, one on top of the other, and you can move them around as you need. My duplicate distance is always at 0. 0 up, 0 down. You can change it. You could say that you want your duplicate distance to be 10 one way, and that would do something like this. It just moved it 10 pixels over, placed the duplicate image 10 pixels over to the right. I personally like my images duplicated right on top of the other, and then if I decide to move them, then that's my option to do so, and it doesn't do it automatically for me. Okay, sorry, I thought I was going to have to pause you for a second. To delete, you just click, press to delete on your keyboard. If you do something and say, oh, I didn't mean to delete that, and you want to undo what you just did, there's an undo button here, but the more convenient way, for me at least, is hold down Control Z, and that is undo. Okay? Alright, so for your shapes, we're going to spend some time on that freehand tool because this is the most important part of the whole program. Once you have a shape, you click on this shape and you'll notice that it's made up of points. It's like you had a string and you had a box of tacks. And as you were laying down the string, you'd stick tacks down there to make sure that the string stayed in place. And that's how your shape is created. If you remove a tack, the string moves. If you add a tack, your string goes where your tack goes. Okay? This is how you're going to make sure that all of your shapes are exactly how you want them to be. By adding these little tacks, which we call nodes, and deleting these nodes. There's a lots of double clicking that will occur while you're doing an image. Say right now I want this to be kind of a smoother image. We'll say it's like a shape of the hair over here. I don't need all these nodes, so I'm going to delete the ones I don't need. Always, always delete the ones that are not serving the purpose that they should be. If you have extra nodes there, it's going to make your lines and your shapes look very choppy. And you do not want that. If you plan on reselling these images ever, keep in mind that you want to keep your images as clean as possible, because the person who is going to be buying your image from you to possibly edit it later, it's going to be really frustrating to try to come in into your illustration and have to work around all these extra tacks or nodes that are throughout your image. So from the very beginning, get in the habit of having absolutely no extra nodes anywhere. You'll notice right here, say I want to, these operate in a line. Usually the line, you can move one side of the arrow or the other, and usually they're independent of each other. If for some reason you say you want the this to be very straight, you can come up here, and these are the little node arrow line commands. Say I want that straight across. Here's that smooth node command, and all of a sudden that's a straight line. We'll say it over here. Let's say you want this to be a straight line. There you go. Let's say you want this side of the arrow the same distance as this side. That would come in handy if you were doing a circle. The symmetrical node will make it even on one side and even on the other. Now you'll see that they are not independent of each other. They're working as if it's just one line, and these arrows are not separate. If you want them separate, say, well, I just want to move this side and I want this side to stay exactly where it is. You come up here to the cusp node, and now that made them independent of each other again, and be able to move freely without affecting the corresponding side. Okay? So that's something to get used to make sure that you're easily creating the shapes that you want, and they're coming out exactly how you want them to be, and they're polished and clean, and you're not running into any kind of frustrations as far as getting them exactly right. Okay. All right. There's another zoom tool if you don't want to use this one. This one's kind of handy. You can click on the magnifying glass and come over here, and we'll say we want to zoom into the eye. All you need to do is click, draw a square around what you want to zoom into, let it go, and it will zoom you right in. Okay. All right, moving down, we have some preset shapes here. If you don't feel like hand drawing everything, there are some presets. I do recommend that you practice drawing everything from scratch. The presets are pretty limiting, but the circle ellipse tool is helpful, and the rectangle tool is helpful if you need those specific shapes, and they need to be very precise. If you click the rectangle, you'll see up here that you have the option of the corners. I know a lot of cute designs have the rounded corners on the bottom. Like this was a rounded corner rectangle shape that I did. Just draw your regular rectangle, and then you can come up here, and if you do the up arrow, that will round those corners up. If you select a different shape, that's the shape that your corners will take on. Okay. Also up here, you'll see this mirror horizontally, mirror vertically. If you're doing patterns or something that you, like maybe like a butterfly, and you have one side of it done, and you want to duplicate that whole side, and use it for the other side, I'll duplicate that. Right now I have two of these shapes. I want to flip this one down to make, say, a bottom butterfly wing. This is a very simple shape, but just to kind of give you an example. Okay, now it's flipped. Now I'm going to use my arrows, slide it down. I could drag and drop it, but I would like it to be exactly right in line with where it is right now. So I'm just using my arrows. Okay, and now let's say I want to take this whole thing and duplicate it and flip it this way. It's turning more into like a pattern kind of shape rather than a butterfly, but you get the idea. I can click, select that whole thing, Control D to duplicate both those layers. I can flip them horizontally and drag and drop or move around this way too. So that's the mirror tool. You can see that this saves a lot of time. Get used to duplicating and you're going to save yourself tons of work. I come in when I'm making new characters, I'll bring in an old character and I'll use parts of the character over and I'll obviously change it around a lot, but the basic head shape will be there, you know, things like that. So graphic or vector art is not like you're doing a pencil drawing and then you're putting it on a shelf and just looking at it and you're not being able to use it later on. Every piece of art you do with this program, you're able to use later as a template, as part of a template, as a color palette. Everything that you do, you have the option of using again and recycling, even if it's a if it's just the hair color of a certain character that you want to bring into a new character because this took 20 minutes for you to do and you don't feel like, you know, going through all the color palettes again. You can import this and use those colors again. So that's one of the really fun things and cool things about vector art is the versatility that you have to redo everything that you have in your portfolio, or reuse, I should say, everything that you have in your portfolio. All right, going down, the text tool. We will get into a lot of how to use this text tool in the font section of the course, but click, draw your circle, type your text, okay? And then your text, the font, this is a drop down right here, font size, bold, italicize, underline, but we will get into a lot of that in the font section. Okay. There is those are some advanced tools. Okay, the only other tool that I use down here is for the basic tools, at least, is the fill tool. Once you have a shape and you want to fill it with a color, you can either double click it to select it, come over here to your bucket, double click that, select your color you want, green. You can press enter on your keyboard or OK. I always do enter. That's going to fill the thing, the shape. Or you could go to the bucket and then uniform fill, and then it will bring up the same thing. So that's two ways that you can get to the same place. The thing that you can use over here that is not over here is the option for a gradient fill or a fountain fill, as well as pattern fill. The fountain fill I use often. Linear will give you one color on one side, bring you over to another color, and those colors are right here. The one on the top is the color on the left, the one on the bottom is the color on the right. If you're using linear, if you're doing radial, you'll see how those change. Conical, sphere, square, sorry. And you can come over here, say you want the shine to be in a corner, and click in the corner and move it around. So that is something that you can play with. More often than not, I'm always at the linear, and the color palettes show up here but I always go to other, and then I get my models, because this is just what I prefer to work in to get my specific color that I want. And the other option that you can do is if you have something up here that you want to grab the color from, say I want this blue, you can use your eyedropper tool and just drag it over to the blue, press OK or hit enter on your keyboard, and it will give it that gradient. I use this on things like right here, you'll see this shape underneath. This has a gradient fill down from a gray to a lighter gray. That's a gradient. Her cheek, well, her cheek is a radial fill. If I go in and make a cheek on a character, if I want a radial fill, that's a circular fill, and I don't want any outlines, this is how I do it. Make my circle. Okay. And I will get rid of the outline by double clicking on none. Okay. Give it the outside color. Okay. Then we'll go over to the bucket, fountain fill. It has the basic color there, but I want to add the center pink. I'm going to grab the pink salmon-y color from her shirt, just because that's what's there. And if I don't do anything over here, this is going to be what happens. Bring it over to here, and you'll see, whoop, you'll see that there is a gradient radial, but there's a very distinct outline. I don't want the outline, I want it to blend more. So I'll go over, back again, or the first time, and you'll see that there's an edge pad option. If you click up on this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 4, I should say, to 20 at least, and click OK. Now you'll see that that blends in a lot better. All right. Usually on cheeks, to get it even to blend more, I'll go over to this blend tool, click that little arrow beside it, go to transparency, and give it a uniform transparency to just make it a little lighter and softer. Okay. That transparency, if I move it over to the lips, you'll see that what that did was kind of break the amount of color that's in that shape in half. So if I had it over a layer, like that had a color or a design, that would show through. If I had it just on a cheek color over here, it would blend in pretty well. Okay. All right, so that's that little trick. We'll get into a lot of this in the character design section, but just so you know how to do that. There are a lot of other tools here that we did not go over, but that is simply because I just don't use them. Feel free to look through them and see if there's something that you see that would be helpful. But this entire image was done by the Freehand tool, and just the basics on changing the outlines of the lines that's created with the Freehand tool, and the fills with the Freehand tool. But that's pretty much it. There's a couple transparencies here and there. One preset shape down here that was this rectangle shape with the curved edges, and that's pretty much all it is. So I do want to show you how to rearrange the layers within your organizer. And let's do that by changing the colors here so you can see clearly. All right. we're going to go right over to these. Whoops, let's zoom in with our little zoom. Okay. Now, say I want the blue, the light blue, to be the one that's on the top. Currently, the orange is the one that's on the top. It's the one that's showing on the top over here in my layer order, and it's the one that I can see visually is overlapped on the top. If I want the blue on the top, I can either go over, find the blue shape and drag and drop it, or Control Z, or I can right click it and click order to front of page or to front of layer, depending on what I want to do. Usually front of page is what I always do. If you have a whole lot of groups of layers and stuff, and you'll see which one, if you just want to move it up to the front of the page, that would be in front of everything, or just the layer that you're currently working on, or the group of images that you're working on. But that is how you move it up and down. When you have a heck of a lot of shapes over here, like hundreds, you will probably want to right click, go to order, front of page, back of page.
Mommy,
okay. Oops, excuse me for 1 second. Sorry about that little interruption. Okay, gotta love my babies. All right, so that's how you move those up and down throughout to switch where these layers go around. Right click, order, back of page would send it behind everything. Okay, so once you play around with the basics, you're going to figure it out fairly quickly. The biggest thing that you're going to have to work on the most, I should say, is creating those nice pretty shapes and thinking ahead of time how you're going to build those shapes on each other. What shape you need to create first, what shape should be second. You can always move them around obviously later, but you do want to have an idea of how you're going to build whatever image you're making from the back to the front, generally. Okay? And that is about it. So practice your freehand tool and have lots and lots of fun, and I will see you in the next section.